What if the two-letter word if is the only thing standing between you and the life you've always wanted? If I had more money, if I had more time, if I was smarter, if circumstances were different. Every if is a prison cell you've locked yourself inside, and you're holding the key. Right now, you're about to discover why the most successful people in the world have eliminated if from their vocabulary. How your excuses are actually protection mechanisms your brain uses to keep you comfortable, and the exact mental framework that transforms if-only thinking into I will action. This isn't motivational fluff. This is the blueprint for crafting your life like a diamond, through pressure, precision, and zero tolerance for excuses. Let's begin. Life Without If by Sudipto Chowdhury and JoyKing Birje opens with a provocative statement. You are exactly where your ifs have placed you. Every unfulfilled dream, every missed opportunity, every gap between who you are and who you want to be can be traced back to a conditional statement you made about your life. I would start that business if I had the capital. I would be in better shape if I had more time. I would be happier if people treated me better. I would pursue my passion if it was more practical. Each if sounds reasonable in isolation, but here's what the authors reveal. These ifs aren't logical assessments of reality. They're sophisticated psychological defense mechanisms that protect you from the discomfort of taking action and risking failure. Your brain would rather keep you safe and stuck than let you risk, fail, and grow. So it generates perfectly rational-sounding ifs that give you permission to stay exactly where you are. The book's subtitle captures the transformation they're offering. Craft your life like a diamond. Own your destiny by design while your dreams into reality. A diamond doesn't form by waiting for perfect conditions. It forms under intense pressure over time through a process that transforms ordinary carbon into something extraordinary. Your life works the same way. Pressure, challenges, and imperfect circumstances aren't obstacles to your transformation. They're the conditions that make transformation possible. But most people approach life backwards. They wait for circumstances to align, for permission to be granted, for confidence to magically appear before taking action. They live in if thinking, and they die with their dreams still trapped in conditional statements. The authors argue for a radical alternative. Life without if. No more waiting. No more conditional living. No more permission seeking. Just clarity about what you want. Commitment to making it happen and consistent action regardless of circumstances. This isn't about toxic positivity or denying reality. It's about recognizing that your ifs are optional interpretations, not absolute truths. Two people face the same obstacle. One says, I can't succeed if this obstacle exists. The other says, I'll succeed because I'll find a way around, through, or over this obstacle. Same reality, completely different mindset, radically different outcomes. Chapter 1. The If Trap. The first chapter exposes the invisible prison most people live in without even knowing it. The if trap is simple. You make your happiness, success, and fulfillment conditional on external circumstances that you may or may not control. I'll be happy if I get promoted. I'll start my dream project if I have more time. I'll be confident if people respect me more. You've outsourced your power to conditions outside yourself. Here's the brutal truth the authors reveal. There will always be an if, always. Get the promotion, and you'll want the next level. Find more time, and you'll fill it with distractions. Get more respect, and you'll want it from different people. The if is not actually about the condition. It's about your brain's need to avoid discomfort by creating justification for inaction. Think about how this plays out. You want to start a business, but you tell yourself you need more capital first. That's your if. So you wait. You save money. Finally, you have the capital. But now, you don't have enough time because your job demands more. New if. You finally free up time. But now, market conditions aren't perfect. Another if. You realize you've been playing this game for years, and the ifs never actually end. They just shape-shift. The authors introduce a powerful diagnostic tool, the if audit. You write down every area of your life where you feel stuck or unfulfilled. Then you write down the if statement you've been telling yourself about why you can't move forward. I'd be healthier if I had more time to cook. I'd be wealthier if I'd been born into a better family. I'd be more successful if I'd gone to a better school. I'd be happier if my partner would change. Once you see your ifs written down, something remarkable happens. You start seeing the pattern. You're not actually stuck because of circumstances. You're stuck because you've conditioned your action on circumstances. The circumstances are just the excuse. The real issue is that you've given away your power to factors outside your control, which guarantees you'll feel powerless. The chapter builds to this insight. Every successful person has faced the same circumstances, obstacles, and limitations that you're using as ifs. They just refuse to make their action conditional on those circumstances changing. They acted despite the ifs, and the action itself created new circumstances. Your if keeps you waiting for permission from reality. Life without if means you grant yourself permission and let reality catch up. Chapter 2. Owning Your Destiny. This chapter shifts from diagnosis to ownership. The authors argue that you can't craft your life without first accepting total responsibility for where you are. Not blame, not guilt, but responsibility. Responsibility means recognizing that while you didn't control everything that happened to you, you do control how you respond, what meaning you assign to events, and what actions you take moving forward. Most people resist this. It feels easier to blame circumstances, other people, bad luck, or systemic obstacles. And yes, real obstacles exist. Some people start with advantages others don't have. But here's the paradox. Blaming circumstances might make you feel better temporarily, but it guarantees you stay stuck. Because if your circumstances are responsible for your results, then only changed circumstances can change your results. You've made yourself a victim. Waiting for rescue ownership flips this entirely. When you own your destiny, you stop asking, who's responsible for my situation? And start asking, what can I do about it? You might not have caused your circumstances, but you're 100% responsible for how you respond to them. That shift from victim to agent is where power lives. The book shares story after story of people who faced objectively difficult circumstances, poverty, discrimination, disability, trauma, and still created extraordinary lives. Not because they denied their circumstances, but because they refused to let circumstances dictate their response. They owned their destiny by owning their choices. The authors introduce the controlled circle exercise. Draw 3 circles. The outer circle represents things completely outside your control. The economy, other people's opinions, the past, genetics, where you were born. The middle circle represents things you can influence but not fully control. Your career trajectory, your relationships, your opportunities. The inner circle represents things you fully control. Your thoughts, your daily actions, how you spend your time and energy, your attitude. Most people obsess over the outer circle. They worry about things they can't control and feel perpetually anxious and powerless. High performers focus exclusively on the inner circle. They pour their energy into the things they can control, and paradoxically, by controlling what they can, they expand their influence over the middle circle. Here's the practical application. When you face any challenge, you ask yourself one question. What's within my control here? Not, is this fair? Not, whose fault is this? Just, what can I control? Then you act on that. Maybe you can't control whether you get hired, but you can control how many applications you send and how well you prepare for interviews. Maybe you can't control whether your business succeeds, but you can control how many hours you work on it and how quickly you learn from failures. Ownership is uncomfortable because it eliminates excuses. You can no longer hide behind "if only." But that discomfort is the price of power. When you own your destiny, you stop waiting for life to happen to you and start making life happen through you. Chapter 3. The Design Mindset. Now we enter the creative phase. Most people are living default lives. They wake up, react to whatever comes at them, follow paths laid out by others, and wonder why they feel unfulfilled. They never ask themselves a fundamental question. What life do I actually want to design? The authors argue that life design begins with clarity. You can't craft a life you haven't defined. But here's where most people get it wrong. They define their life by what they want to have. I want a nice house, financial freedom, respect, adventure. The problem with have goals is they're endless and unsatisfying. You achieve them and feel empty because having things doesn't create meaning. The design mindset shifts focus from having to being. Who do you want to be? What do you want to stand for? What qualities do you want to embody? What kind of impact do you want to make? When you design your life around being rather than having, everything changes. The have goals become natural byproducts of who you're becoming. The book walks through the diamond blueprint, a framework for designing your ideal life. First, you identify your core values. These aren't what you think you should value. These are the principles you actually want to organize your life around. Maybe it's freedom, growth, contribution, creativity, connection, excellence. Whatever they are, they become your North Star. Second, you envision your ideal day 5 years from now. Not your goals, your actual daily experience. What time do you wake up? What's the first thing you do? What work are you engaged in? Who are you spending time with? What does your environment look like? How do you feel moving through your day? This exercise creates a vivid template that your subconscious can work toward. Third, you identify the identity shift required. Who do you need to become to live that ideal day? If your ideal day includes running a successful business, you need to become someone who creates value, solves problems, and leads people. If your ideal day includes peak physical health, You need to become someone who prioritizes their body. The gap between your current identity and your required identity is your growth zone. The design mindset also means saying no, a lot. Every yes to something is a no to something else. If you say yes to every opportunity, distraction, and request, you're saying no to your design. The authors emphasize that designing your life isn't about doing more. It's about doing less, specifically, less of what doesn't align with your blueprint, and more of what does. Most people never design their life because they're afraid of choosing. What if I choose wrong? What if I commit to this vision and regret it? The authors address this fear directly. A committed direction, even if imperfect, beats aimless wandering every time. You can course correct as you go. You can't course correct if you never start moving. Life design is iterative. You create a blueprint. You live into it. You learn what works and what doesn't. You refine the blueprint. But you need that initial design to start the process. Most people are waiting for perfect clarity before they commit to a direction. The authors flip this. Commitment creates clarity, not the other way around. Chapter 4. Turning dreams into strategy. Dreams without strategy stay dreams. This chapter bridges the gap between vision and execution. You know who you want to become and what life you want to design. Now what? The authors argue that most people fail here because they treat their dreams like wishes, hoping they'll manifest, rather than projects that require planning, resources, and systematic execution. The first principle of strategy is reverse engineering. You start with the end vision and work backwards. If you want to be running $1 million business in 5 years, what needs to be true in year 4? What needs to happen in year 3? What about year 2, year 1, this quarter, this month, this week? You keep breaking it down until you have a clear action you can take today. This process reveals something crucial. The actions required today to reach your 5-year vision are often completely different from what you're currently doing. Most people are busy with activities that make them feel productive, but don't actually move them toward their vision. Reverse engineering exposes this misalignment immediately. The authors introduce the critical path concept. In any complex project, some actions are critical. They must happen for the project to succeed. And some are supporting. Most people spend their time on supporting activities that feel easier and safer. High performers identify the critical path and focus there, even when it's uncomfortable. For example, if you want to build a successful coaching business, the critical path is getting clients, not perfecting your website, not creating the perfect logo, not reading 17 more books on coaching. Those are supporting activities. The critical path is talking to potential clients, offering your service, getting feedback, and iterating. But talking to potential clients is scary and rejection-prone. So most people avoid it by staying busy with supporting activities. The chapter provides a powerful framework. The 80-20 strategy. In any pursuit, 20% of actions produce 80% of results. Your job is to ruthlessly identify that 20% and allocate the majority of your time there. This requires honesty about what's actually moving the needle versus what's just keeping you busy. Strategy also means managing energy and resources. You have limited time, energy, attention, and willpower. If you spread them across too many pursuits, you make minimal progress everywhere. The authors advocate for strategic focus, fewer goals, deeper commitment. pick one or two areas where you want significant transformation and pour your resources there. Make real progress in those areas before expanding to others. The book also addresses the strategy of leverage. How can you get disproportionate results from your actions? Maybe it's building systems that work while you sleep. Maybe it's learning skills that compound over time. Maybe it's building relationships with people who can open doors. Strategic thinking always asks, what's the highest leverage action I can take right now? Finally, strategy requires measurement. You can't manage what you don't measure. The authors recommend tracking leading indicators, the actions you take, not just lagging indicators, the results you get. If your goal is weight loss, the lagging indicator is the number on the scale. The leading indicators are workouts completed, nutritious meals eaten, and sleep quality. Focus on leading indicators because those are within your control. Chapter 5, The Pressure Principle. Here's where the diamond metaphor becomes literal. Diamonds form under extreme pressure over long periods. They don't form in comfortable conditions. Your transformation works the same way. This chapter challenges the modern obsession with comfort, ease, and avoiding stress. The authors argue that pressure isn't the enemy of growth, it's the requirement. But there's an important distinction: productive pressure versus destructive stress. Destructive stress is chronic, unmanageable, and tied to things outside your control. It breaks you down. Productive pressure is challenging but manageable, tied to meaningful pursuits and within your influence. It builds you up. The people who achieve extraordinary things don't avoid pressure. They deliberately expose themselves to it because they know pressure reveals and builds capacity. When you're under pressure, you discover resources within yourself you didn't know existed. You get creative. You focus intensely. You eliminate distractions. You perform at levels that would be impossible in comfortable conditions. The authors share a critical insight. Comfort is not the goal. Growth is the goal. And growth only happens at the edge of your current capacity. If you're always comfortable, you're not growing. You're stagnating. The magic happens when you're stretched slightly beyond what you think you can handle. Not so much that you break, but enough that you're forced to expand. This means you need to design pressure into your life deliberately. Set deadlines that force you to perform. Make public commitments that create accountability. Take on challenges that scare you slightly. Put yourself in situations where you have to rise to the occasion. Most people do the opposite. They avoid pressure at all costs, then wonder why they're not growing. The book provides a framework for pressure dosing. Too little pressure and you coast. Too much pressure and you burn out. The optimal zone is just beyond your comfort zone, challenging enough to require growth, but not so overwhelming that you shut down. This zone is different for everyone and changes over time as your capacity expands. The authors also address the role of deadlines. Deadlines are artificial pressure that force focus and completion. Most people work expands to fill the time available. Give yourself a year to finish a project, and it'll take a year. Give yourself 3 months, and you'll find a way to do it in 3 months. Tight deadlines eliminate procrastination and force prioritization. But here's the nuance. Pressure without recovery is destructive. Diamonds form under pressure, but they also require time. The same with you. You need intense focus periods followed by genuine recovery. Most high performers operate in sprints, periods of extreme focus and effort followed by periods of rest and reflection. They don't try to maintain peak intensity 24/7. The pressure principle reframes struggle. When you face obstacles, resistance, and challenges, you're not being punished. You're being forged. The pressure isn't evidence that you're on the wrong path. It's evidence that you're on the right path, and your capacity is expanding to match your ambition. Chapter 6. Execution without excuses. This is the reality check chapter. You've eliminated your ifs. You've owned your destiny. You've designed your ideal life. You've crafted a strategy. Now comes the only thing that actually matters: execution. And this is where most people completely fall apart. The authors don't sugarcoat it. Execution is hard. It's unglamorous. It's repetitive. It requires showing up when you don't feel like it, pushing through resistance, dealing with setbacks, and staying consistent when results aren't immediately visible. Most people love the idea of transformation, but hate the process of transformation. Execution without excuses means you do the work regardless of how you feel, what obstacles arise, or whether conditions are perfect. You said you would, so you do. Period. This sounds harsh, but the authors argue it's actually liberating. When you eliminate excuses as an option, you eliminate the mental energy wasted on debating whether you should do the thing. You just do it. The book identifies the most common excuses and destroys them one by one. I don't have time. You have the same 24 hours as everyone else. You have time for what you prioritize. The real statement is, this isn't a priority for me. That's fine, but own it. I don't have resources. Most world-changing businesses started with almost no capital. Most transformations started with zero external resources and 100% resourcefulness. I'm not ready. You'll never feel ready. Readiness is a feeling that comes after you start, not before. It's too hard. Yes, it is. That's the whole point. If it were easy, everyone would do it, and it wouldn't be valuable. What if I fail? You will, multiple times. Failure is part of the process, not evidence you should quit. The only real failure is not trying. Every other failure is just feedback. The authors introduce the identity execution method. Most people try to change behavior while maintaining their old identity. They try to exercise consistently while still identifying as someone who's lazy. They try to build a business while still identifying as someone who's not business-minded. This creates internal conflict that sabotages execution. Instead, you first shift identity, and behavior follows naturally. You don't try to force yourself to work out. You become someone who values their health, and working out is just what that person does. You don't force yourself to take business actions. You become an entrepreneur, and taking business actions is how entrepreneurs behave. This shift is subtle but transformative. You're no longer fighting against yourself. You're expressing who you are. Execution stops being a battle of willpower and becomes an expression of identity. The book also addresses the execution trap of perfectionism. Perfectionists delay execution while they perfect the plan, perfect the product, perfect themselves. But perfectionism is just fear wearing a sophisticated disguise. The market doesn't reward perfection. It rewards value delivered. Your dream doesn't care about perfection. It cares about action. The authors champion good enough to launch. You don't need the perfect business plan. You need to talk to a customer. You don't need the perfect body. You need to start moving. You don't need perfect confidence. You need to take the action despite the fear. Execution creates momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence creates better execution. But you have to start the cycle with imperfect action. Finally, the chapter addresses consistency. Execution isn't about one heroic effort. It's about showing up every day and doing the work. The person who works on their dream 1 hour daily for a year accomplishes infinitely more than the person who works intensely for a week and quits. Consistency beats intensity every time. Chapter 7. Resilience and Adaptation. You will face setbacks. Your plans will not unfold perfectly. Obstacles will emerge that you didn't anticipate. This chapter prepares you for the inevitable adversity and teaches you how to use it as fuel rather than letting it become a reason to quit. The authors argue that resilience isn't a personality trait you're born with. It's a skill you build through exposure and practice. You become resilient by facing difficulties, processing them effectively, and continuing forward. Each time you encounter adversity and choose to persist, you're strengthening your resilience muscle. But most people misunderstand resilience. They think it means being tough, suppressing emotions, and grinding through pain. That's not resilience. That's repression, and it leads to burnout. Real resilience includes emotional processing. You feel the disappointment, frustration, or fear. You acknowledge it. Then you consciously choose your response instead of being controlled by the emotion. The book introduces the resilience cycle. First, something goes wrong. Your business faces unexpected competition. Your health setback derails your fitness progress. A relationship ends. A financial loss occurs. This is the adversity trigger. Second, you experience an emotional response. Disappointment, anger, fear, frustration. These are natural and healthy. The mistake most people make is trying to skip this step or getting stuck here. You need to feel it, but not dwell in it indefinitely. Third, you process and reframe. What can I learn from this? What's within my control? What's my next move? This is where you shift from victim to agent. You're not denying the difficulty. You're extracting value from it and identifying your next action. Fourth, you adapt and continue. You adjust your strategy based on what you learned. You try a different approach. You keep moving forward with new information. This completes the resilience cycle and strengthens your capacity to handle future adversity. The authors emphasize that adaptation is crucial. The plan you started with will not be the plan that succeeds. Markets change. Your understanding deepens. Unexpected obstacles emerge. The people who succeed aren't the ones who stick rigidly to their original plan. They're the ones who stay committed to their vision but flexible in their strategy. This requires killing your ego. Ego makes you defensive about your original plan. It makes you interpret necessary changes as failure. Growth mindset sees every setback as information that makes your strategy smarter. Your willingness to adapt based on feedback is what separates sustainable success from stubborn failure. The book shares stories of major pivots, businesses that completely changed direction, people who abandoned years of work to pursue better opportunities, strategies that looked nothing like the original plan but achieved the desired outcome. The common thread: they stayed committed to the vision but ruthlessly adapted the strategy when reality provided feedback. The chapter ends with this: you will fail more than you succeed. especially early on. That's not a bug. It's a feature. Every failure is either a lesson that makes you better or a reason to quit. The only difference between people who ultimately succeed and people who don't is how they interpret failure. One group sees failure as evidence they should stop. The other sees failure as evidence they're learning. Same failure, completely different meaning, radically different outcome. Chapter 8. Living Your Crafted Life. The final chapter addresses the paradox of arrival. You've eliminated your ifs. You've executed your strategy. You've built resilience through adversity. You're finally living the life you designed. Now what? Because here's what the authors warn about. Many people achieve their goals and feel empty. They spent years chasing something, got it, and discovered it didn't provide the fulfillment they expected. This happens when you confuse achievement with fulfillment. Achievement is reaching a destination. Fulfillment is enjoying the journey. If you're only focused on the destination, I'll be happy when I achieve this, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Because even when you achieve it, there's always another level, another goal, another thing you don't have yet. The authors argue for a different approach. Present moment engagement. You're still working toward your vision, but you're finding satisfaction in the process itself. You enjoy the growth. You appreciate the challenge. You find meaning in the work, regardless of outcomes. This doesn't mean you don't care about results. It means you don't make your happiness conditional on results. Living your crafted life means integrating all the principles from previous chapters into a sustainable lifestyle. You're no longer in transformation mode. You're in maintenance and optimization mode. The intense pressure of building something from nothing is replaced by the steady work of sustaining and improving what you've built. But the authors warn against complacency. The biggest threat to your crafted life isn't external obstacles. It's internal drift. You get comfortable. You stop growing. You coast on past momentum. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, you stop being the person who created this life and become someone who's just maintaining it. The solution is continuous growth. Once you achieve a goal, you set a new one, not because you're dissatisfied, but because growth itself is fulfilling. Humans are happiest when we're progressing toward something meaningful, not when we've arrived and stopped moving. The book introduces the concept of contribution-focused living. Once you've built your ideal life, the next level of fulfillment comes from helping others build theirs. You shift from achievement to contribution. This doesn't mean abandoning your goals. It means expanding your identity from someone who succeeds to someone who helps others succeed. The authors share that the ultimate version of living without if is inspiring others to do the same. When people see you living a crafted life, designed intentionally, executed consistently, adapted intelligently, they start questioning their own ifs. Your example becomes permission for them to stop making excuses and start taking ownership. The chapter addresses work-life integration. The old paradigm was work-life balance, trying to keep work and life in separate compartments. But when you've crafted a life aligned with your values, work isn't something to be balanced against life. It's an expression of life. You're not trying to escape work to enjoy life. You're designing work that's part of an integrated, meaningful life. This requires ongoing reflection. The authors recommend regular life audits, Quarterly, you ask yourself, is my daily life aligned with my designed life? Have my values shifted? Are my actions reflecting my stated priorities? Where am I drifting into if thinking again? What needs to be realigned? The book ends with a powerful reminder. Crafting your life is not a one-time event. It's a continuous practice. You'll face new ifs at every level. New excuses will emerge. New circumstances will challenge your commitment. The difference is that you now have the tools, mindset, and experience to recognize these patterns and choose differently. You're not someone hoping life will get better. You're not someone waiting for permission from circumstances. You're someone who designs, executes, adapts, and lives a life that reflects your highest values and deepest potential. That's life without if. That's a life crafted like a diamond, formed under pressure, designed with precision, and shining with the clarity of someone who stopped making excuses and started making their vision real. So here we are, life without if, the complete framework for eliminating excuses, owning your destiny, and crafting a life that reflects your true potential. Let's be absolutely clear about what just happened. You now understand why you've been stuck. It's not circumstances. It's not lack of resources. It's not bad luck. It's if thinking, the sophisticated excuse machine your brain runs to keep you safe and comfortable. But here's the moment of truth. You can watch this video, feel inspired for the next hour, and then go right back to your ifs. I'd apply these principles if I wasn't so busy. See what just happened? You just created a new if about the very book that's teaching you to eliminate ifs. That's how powerful and automatic this pattern is. Or you can make a different choice. Right now, not tomorrow, not when conditions are better. Right now. Pick one if that's been holding you back, just one. Write it down. Then ask yourself the question the authors would ask. What would I do right now if this if didn't exist? Then do that thing, not the whole project. Just the next smallest action. Maybe your if is I'd start my business if I had more capital. What would you do if that excuse didn't exist? You'd probably talk to potential customers to validate your idea. So do that today. Make 3 calls. Maybe your if is I'd be healthier if I had more time. What would you do without that excuse? You'd probably move your body for 20 minutes. So do that today, right after this video ends. The transformation doesn't happen when you understand these concepts. It happens when you act on them despite every if your brain generates to stop you. Will it be uncomfortable? Absolutely. Will you face obstacles? Guaranteed. Will you want to quit and return to your comfortable ifs multiple times? That's the pressure that forms diamonds. That's the process that transforms your life. 5 years from now, you'll be somewhere. The question isn't whether you'll arrive. You will. The question is, will you arrive at a life you designed and crafted intentionally, or will you arrive at wherever your ifs carried you by default? One path requires courage, commitment, and consistent action, despite discomfort. The other path requires nothing. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep telling yourself the same ifs, and let time pass. If this video gave you even one insight that helps you see your ifs for what they are, excuses disguised as reasons, share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Leave a comment with the one if you're committing to eliminate and the action you're taking today. and subscribe for more content that doesn't coddle you with comfortable lies, but challenges you with uncomfortable truths. Your life without if starts with your next decision. No more conditional living. No more waiting for perfect circumstances. No more excuses, just clarity, commitment, and action. The diamond version of yourself is waiting on the other side of the pressure you've been avoiding. Time to step into it.